Hello Year 6, welcome back to my channel. We are going to continue our science studies, and this time we will continue with aquatic habitats. So we are saying goodbye to mountainous regions. I will tell you though some of the revision tasks which you can find in the workbook later towards the end of this video footage session. And in your book you can use the new pages on page 116 and 17. So let's get started. And first of all, I would like to start with something which is not in your book, but still really important because that's our biggest lake in Hungary, namely Lake Balaton. And I would like you to concentrate on this a bit. So let's see what you need to know about the biggest lake of Hungary. First, the name. The name itself means lake. Balaton is a Slavic word. This is why in Hungarian language we rarely add this word to the word Balaton. The Latin name, which you can find in chronicles and other old sources, is Paso. It comes from Latin. So it's not moving water from that point of view. That it's not like a river, of course. What about the formation of it? It's a rift lake. So tectonism was important in the formation of the lake. There were fault lines alongside and one area started going downwards. So this way, the basic bed of the lake was formed. The primary inflow, so a river flowing into the lake and giving its water content, is Zala. And the other important thing to note is the primary outflow, which is artificial water canal, Sio canal, or Sio sluice is the other word for this. The catchment area where all the waters just go into the lake is more than 5,000 square kilometers. And as you can see, even though it's considered a big lake, it's not that big. I mean, the maximum length of the lake is just a bit more than 70 kilometers. The maximum width is 14 kilometers. The surface area is a tiny bit bigger than the size of Budapest, 590 square kilometers, and the average depth is around 3 meters. Of course, this can change in accordance with precipitation in the land of Hungary, but it's considered a relatively shallow lake. If you think of other lakes, like in the North American continent, you can find the 5 Great Lakes. They are more than 100 meters deep. This is relatively shallow. If you could place big trees in the lake, like oak trees, all the canopies would cover the whole surface area. The size of the lake can be symbolized by telling you a special kind of idea. If I could freeze the whole lake and I could tell Hungarian people to stand on the surface, the 10 million Hungarian people basically could cover the whole area. So it's just enough for the people of Hungary. Now you can probably imagine more easily how big this lake is. The maximum depth is a bit more than 12 meters near the Tihany Peninsula. And of course, we are going to analyze all the little creatures living in the lake. This is why you need to have a look at the book itself as well. But before we are doing that, I would like to mention some more things about Lake Balaton. Let's go back to the presentation. If you can remember well the data, which I told you a bit earlier, then you can stop the video footage and you could just test yourself. But please open your exercise book as well and write the title there and just write down this one. I want you to use the Hungarian metric system, so kilometer, meter, square kilometer, and these. I don't need the English one, of course. Probably you visited some of the important towns and cities around the lake, like Hévíz, Keszthely, Füred, Balatonfüred, Fonyód, or Siófok. These are some of the nice holiday resorts. And what about the formation of the lake from a kind of geological point of view. As you can see, it has a long history, and then you can see that the lake at certain parts of its formation was much smaller, and there were years when it was much bigger than today. Chios-Luis or canal is an artificial river or canal, and they started making it in 1811. It was a longer procedure. The Tihany Peninsula, around which the lake has the deepest parts, this is why we call that Tihany Well, Tihany Kút, more than 12 meters. So the peninsula itself has some dormant geysers. They are not active anymore, but they refer to the fact that there were volcanic activities in the neighborhood, probably millions of years ago. Balaton highlands or uplands get quite a lot of sunshine, the southern slopes of the hills. So it's excellent for viticulture. There are plenty of vineyards in the region, and it's a good business for farmers there. Szentgyörgy-hegy or Szentgyörgy Mount with the basalt organs is a really symbolic part of the region in the north. There are some other basalt mountains, Badacsony-Gulács, made up of this kind of basalt stone in Tapolca Basin. Basin is Medence in Hungarian. This is why I wrote that. This stone is rather hard, and when it's still a kind of liquidy, when comes up from the ground as a lava, it's rather dark because it has lower silicon content, and it can be rather fluid-like, so it can flow easily. As you can see, Badacsony was not really a mountain when it was formed, just the surface was that high, that tall, but where there's no basalt in the region, those areas basically, those areas were destroyed by external forces. So the original surface was right here at the top of the mountain. You could just continue this line to the east and west in the picture, and then the rest of the stones disappeared because external forces would easily wear away these softer stones. But as I told you, basalt is a really hard stone, so external forces cannot really destroy it. Tihany Abbey Church, founded by Andrew I, just a kind of nice image here. And Kis-Balaton area has a really important role in the west. It's a swamp area, it's not really a lake. And it has quite a lot of sedge and reeds which cover the whole area. And these are plants, lake plants. We are going to learn about these a bit later on. And lots of deposits from River Zala were laid down in the region. So this area is important because it can filter all nutrients. So this way, the lake can still be a lake, because if there's quite a lot of nutrients going into a lake, then more and more plants can appear there. And finally, the lake can even disappear. It can become a swamp first, and then the whole area stops being a lake, basically. So this is why the role of Kis-Balaton is important. You can see the Hungarian names here, Sedge and Reeds Nátféli. And the Balaton Riviera, or basically a resort area in the north and south, are important. The southern part of the lake is shallower, the northern part is a bit deeper. And if you could concentrate, then you can remember what these places are in the pictures. So this is about Lake Balaton, and let's continue with the creatures living there in the lake. So this is why I told you that I wanted to have this kind of intro with the biggest lake, because now aquatic habitats are on the way, and this is what we are going to learn about. Wetlands waters of Hungary. So the place where plants and animals naturally live and grow determines their lifestyle. This is the starter sentence here in our book. Yeah, because there's quite a lot of watery areas, wetlands in Hungary as well. They needed to find a way to adapt to these special circumstances. And the first, you can see a nice image here. So there are even birds, mammals, reptiles, smaller, bigger animals, lots of different types of plants living near lakes and waters. But the tinier organisms are phyto or zooplanktons. Phytoplanktons are more like plants, zooplanktons are more like animals. They are tiny. Phytoplankton can make their own food through photosynthesis, so they produce food for the living organisms in water. The smaller creatures or even bigger creatures can eat these up. And the first things we are going to learn about is protists. A protist is a single-celled microscopic organism. So it's not like your body. We have like billions of cells everywhere in our body, skin, bones, so on and forth. But these creatures have just one single cell, one unit. You can see them here in the picture, and you can see this little kind of moving image of the first feature, which we are going to check, Euglenias. Euglena is zöld szemes ostoros in Hungarian. And the strange thing about these, that they can give a beautiful green color to waters, and many people do not think of the fact that these are organisms living there. So they are a bit like plants. They contain chlorophyll. This is why they are green. But the strange thing about these protists, Euglenas, is the fact that they can be like animals as well when the circumstances or conditions around them are not quite good. So it's also important to know that they are flagellates. So they have this long flagellum that is called ostor in Hungarian. And this is coming out of a reservoir, which is a smaller cavity here in the body of the cell. The nucleus and nucleolus, this is basically the DNA of the cell responsible for reproduction of euglenas, and the green chloroplasts can be here. The contractile vacuole can basically remove certain things out of the body of the cell. And the other thing is the pellicle, which is a special kind of membrane alongside. They have actually two flagellas, a thread-like structure that allows the cell to move, the longer one, and they usually have a shorter one. If you just watch these carefully, probably you can see them both moving there. The long one propels in the water, so there's this kind of circular motion in water. And euglenas have a special eye spot as well, which is sensitive to light. This is why they are able to swim towards light sources. And because they contain chlorophyll, we said that, okay, they are able to make photosynthesis, but in darkness, after several days, these chlorophylls can disappear. And it can catch food and eat food as an animal. It ingests food. Ingest means that it takes the food into the body of the cell. So it's a bit like an animal if there's not enough light. Now, I think we analyzed everything about euglenas. And there's something else in waters, also microscopic, very small. It also has one cell. These are ciliates. Cilia are the tiny structures around the cell which can move the whole cell forward. So the paramecium has this slipper shape. Slipper is the thing which you wear at home when you don't want to wear shoes in the house. The Hungarian name is papucs állatka, so it's because of the shape, but the English name is paramecium. They live in ponds, and along the surfaces of the cells, they have these parallel hair-like cilia. So this is why they are ciliates. Okay, how can they obtain food? Basically, these cilia are a bit like arms, and they can just ingest food through the oral groove, and they have these food vacuoles, tiny ball-shaped structures with the food inside. Through the anal pore, they can remove the waste materials. They also have a contractile vacuole which can kind of pulse and move, and you can find the important nucleus inside, again responsible for reproduction. Okay, I think we can just mention one more thing, that they feed on bacteria, and this is why they are really important for cleaning waters. So they are tiny organisms which can clean ponds and lakes. When conditions are unfavorable for Paramecium in waters, Paramecium protect itself by losing its flagellum, and they form a special cyst around them. We can call this tok in Hungarian. This can be a special kind of protection for the cell. And when the conditions are favorable again, then they can become active and this cyst disappears. Paramecium are the most important consumers of algae in freshwater environments. So they can also help lakes stay clean from that point of view. So not just bacteria, but algae can be ingested by Paramecium. And we mentioned bacteria, important food source for Paramecium. And these are the basics about bacteria. They break down organic materials or dead organism or organisms into inorganic parts. They have some typical shapes. A bacilli shape is here. The Hungarian word bacillus comes from this Latin word. The next one is cocci, which is like tiny little ball-shaped structures of bacteria, and spirally, which have spiral shapes. Okay, I think we just checked the most important parts, and now I would like you to concentrate on aquatic habitats. In your workbook, you can find a task on page 118, true or false task 6. I would be happy if you could do that at home. And the drawing task would be important on page 117, task 3. And the rest can be done together in one of our Zoom classes. So just do these 2 tasks, but we will also start revision. I'm going to tell you some special tasks from the workbook as well, but they are not that hard. So if you have an atlas or you just open your book, you can just do it in no time. Page 113, task 10. There are certain names missing from this special table. You can just write them there. And the next one is on page 114, the map here. Certain special geographical names are missing. Please write them there on the map. And there's one more about cities and towns on page 116. So these are the tasks you need to do in the workbook. And this time, I don't want you to write anything special in the exercise book from this second part. Only about Lake Balaton. You can just write down the title, Lake Balaton, Aquatic Habitats, the basic facts about the lake, which I showed you earlier. It was like a table, you know, the length of the lake and such things. So that's the only thing I need in the exercise, no more. So we will meet in our Zoom class later on. Thank you very much for visiting my YouTube channel. Keep up good work. Bye-bye.